right here. Oh God, we're streaming. What's up? Okay. Today we are going to be using Sharpies on door windows. So, we take a look over here. We have a door window. You might be able to see it. Can you see it? No, stop blocking it. This one. We're gonna take a Sharpie and we're gonna talk about cutting door panel or cutting your window tint patterns out a little bit safer. So if you are in chat right now, please say hello, and then I know this actually works. Because for all I know, we don't have any audio. We're gonna get started pretty quickly, and then we'll just answer whatever questions anybody has about this kind of stuff. Yo, what up? YouTube's connected. Yay, look at that. Lots of people. And then for whatever reason, it's not pop. There we go. If you're on TikTok, say hello. No more headset. Okay, so we actually have another trick up our sleeves that we're going to be doing too. So we'll do a little bit of on a tripod, and then a little bit of this crazy thing too. So you'll be able to see firsthand how we do this kind of stuff. No more headset. Back to the Future was dope. That was dope. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. For cutting with the Sharpie, this is actually a lot simpler, a lot less steps. The only thing with cutting with a Sharpie is that it's helpful to have some type of a glass board rather than just doing everything on the car. I do have a snitty safety cutter that we're going to talk about that can kind of make things a little bit more doable on the car. But we'll let's go ahead and see how this goes. Okay. How hard is it to shrink the front windshield enough? It's C63 AMG. Not that hard. Okay. So let's go ahead and put you guys on here. What's the best color? What's the best color to use for a Sharpie? That's up to you, really. Something that has some contrast to it. So you can do it okay with black. You just got to be conscious of your cutting board here. But I have a piece of tint right now that's actually on my car right now. And then before I forget, let me go ahead and turn the car on. Key, where's the key? It's over there. Yeah. There we go. Okay. So this is what I first thought of when I was first introduced to Sharpies. This is kind of, I didn't know exactly, I knew you were going to mark your edges and then make your cuts. But you can actually do this really efficiently without having to do extra cuts. So I have a piece of just 50% Pro Nano on here right now. And I don't want to get too confusing. So we're just going to take this one off and we'll put a brand new piece on. If you pre-cut a plotter, what's a good online store to buy tools from? We have a store, 313tint.com. If you're pre-cutting with a plotter and weeding, are you doing your pre-cut and then smirking, or is it just normal H? Oh, with shrinking. No, with plotter cutting and a back window, you can do a normal H pattern. Okay, so first thing I do is I got my tint here on the door, and then I'm gonna lift this up. Actually, this is kind of, No, we'll do this, and then we'll do more of a POV here. So one thing that I like to do before I even start cutting is I'll line this up at the bottom edge right here. I just do this as a shelf, and then I would take my knife and I would trim out my pattern. But for a Sharpie, we're already gonna treat it like it's tucked into the bottom, because all our cuts are pretty much gonna happen off of the car. So we're gonna take our pattern, and we're just gonna already drag it down about as far as we want to install it on the inside. So we're below this bottom edge, and we can save ourselves a cut by using this flat edge here, as long as it matches up with the flat edge there. Then you're gonna wanna tack your pattern in place. And then we're going to, go for my knife. We're gonna take our Sharpie, and then we're gonna make a mark here, just on one side, and pretend that we're using a knife, and go all the way down on one side. And then we're gonna go to this other side, and then do the same thing. So I've just defined where the side edges are. That's all I really need to do. And then from here, I'm gonna take this cutter, I'm gonna trim off this bulk. One thing I don't wanna see is the tint grabbing any of the paint. So I'm just gonna trim off that excess before I roll my window down. But we're gonna open the door, and then we're simply gonna roll this window down a couple inches, and then there's no way around it. You have to do a little bit of cutting on the car. So we're gonna use a knife right here, and we're gonna use this that way. We'll cut in this direction so you can kind of see this a little better. So I'm gonna start blade out about that much. We're gonna poke in, and then we're gonna make our top edge cut. We don't have to get totally to the side, but we can get close. And then we're just gonna, right like that. I often cut too short. How do I fix it? So if you're doing a Sharpie, which is what we're covering right now, I'll show exactly how to fix it. But from here, we're gonna pick up our pattern. Where's that little, it's amazing how that goes hiding. We're gonna pick up our pattern, we're gonna take it over to some type of a cut board, and then we're just gonna cut some straight lines. So with these lines here, I already know exactly like how wide my pattern is. So I'm just gonna follow those lines. So you could use whatever color Sharpie that you want. I have silver ones, so when we're doing a really dark piece of film, you can see them pretty prominently. This is a, 50%? It's a little bit harder to see on there, but this is exactly where my side edge is. So all I need to do is take a ruler and go on the outside of that line. And then that's how I'm basically creating my border. And I'm just gonna cut down the entire way. Right like that. Because if I know my edge is here, and I just made a little 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch, or however wide you want your pattern to be past that, well then you're spot on, aren't you? Exactly where that pattern needs to go. You're not shifting anymore. So we're gonna do the same thing with here. This is where my Sharpie is. I wanna cut just on the outside of that line. All the way down. Take that off. And then so the last cuts are your normal cuts. So here, we're gonna continue this. This is my top edge. And then round that corner. I'm gonna shave it just a little bit more. There we go. That's better. Same thing with the bottom. And then this side as well. Just gonna round our corners. So this is a way to get your patterns much quicker and still get that perfect top edge pattern. So let's take this back over. Let's take this back over to the car, and we'll put this on. Are there any tips for rounding the corner? Yes. Taking your knife, putting extra blade so you can get a nice low angle. Also, sharpening your knife is really important. So every couple cuts, you're gonna take your knife and your blade, that's what these notches are for, these 9mm stainless steel. And then this just snaps away. And then we have a nice sharp point again. But whenever you're cutting on glass, you want it to be about that far out, just so you can get a nice low angle on the glass when you're cutting. Okay, so now that we did that one, let's switch up the angle a little bit so you guys can see a little bit closer POV. So let me grab this. So we're gonna throw this on. We're gonna take you guys, turn you sideways just for a second, and then we're gonna go back ultra wide. You guys are gonna just chill right here for a minute. See? And let me flip the camera. Duh. And then we'll go on here. There you go. Everything should be normal now. Thank you for your patience. Why is Flex film so thin compared to Geo? I don't know. Not every company's film is as nice as everybody else's. Okay, so we're gonna go back to our door window. So you can see this is where my Sharpie line is. And then see how we're overlapping our side just a little bit? That's perfect. Same thing with over here. We have our Sharpie, and then we created a little bit of an overlap there. I bet that's more comfortable than the headset. Yeah, by like a lot. It just gets in the way a little bit. Okay, so starting from the beginning again, we're gonna take our film, we're gonna unroll a piece. Let's roll our window up first though. Window, rolled all the way up. I have a question, 20% tint on all different types of tint, do they all look the same? No, they're all gonna look a little bit different. So the shade can be the same or very similar, but the coloring of the film can be different. So I could have 20% from 5 different brands, and they're all gonna look a little bit different. On the outside of the car, they're gonna look black. On the inside of the car, when you're looking through the actual glass, that's when they might look a little different. What degree blade do you use? So these are 60-degree stainless steel. Can you drain the car batteries by accident? Yeah, of course. This is a prime example. So this car naturally has a drain anyways, so it's probably gonna die on me as we're doing this. They usually last for about an hour. So one of the first things that I can do, because this is a 24-inch roll, with cars we really only need 24. This is a 24. With cars we really only need a 20-inch roll, or you can take a 36 and split it in half, which is what I'm gonna do next. So I wanna take this extra, and then we'll just trim it off to kind of get it out of our way to get started. And so this is just lined up here just as a start. And then we're going to shift this down about that far. We don't want to shift it down really more than a ½ inch here. We're just a little bit below that seal, and we're going to spray it and tack it in place. Then we're going to take our Sharpie, pop off the cap, go on one side, and we're going to treat this just like a knife. Take that and just draw one side edge, go back to the other one, and then draw your other side edge. You can use a silver Sharpie, you can use whatever marker is going to leave a line on the window. And then we're gonna take this, and then we're gonna roll our window down just a couple inches. Grab our top edge cutting knife. Remember, we already made a cut, so I'm gonna take my other snapper here, and we're just gonna snap this off. So that way we're hitting a new spot on that blade. So then it's nice and sharp. So let's take this, poke it in right about there. And then we're gonna make our cut. Whatever angle you hold it, just make sure you hold it the same angle throughout. But make sure your knife is kind of leaning forward. Is the top edge knife also 60? It is. It doesn't need to be. We'll show the blades in just a second here. So then we'll take this pattern, go over here, and then we're gonna take a straight edge. I should get a 24-inch ruler here. And so here's our Sharpie line. You see that? So we wanna just go a little bit wider than that. So that, and then we're gonna kind of line that up there. This is why like one longer ruler probably would have been a little bit better. And then there you go. That's one cut. And then same thing on this side. Where can I get a glass board? You're gonna contact any type of flat glass company. Or you can look on Marketplace for windows that people are throwing away. This board right here, this was custom. This is a sliding glass barn door that we fixed to the front of our cabinets here. This is very unique. But they'll slide out of the way so we can get access to the cabinets. So that's gonna be most of our cuts. From there, we just need to round the corners. So I made some cuts already, so I'm gonna take my knife. I wanna snap off. So I got a nice sharp point. And when I'm making these cuts, I want to just put out about that much blade and then continue that line. And then you're just holding the same line and swinging your knife down as you're rounding an edge. So if I'm gonna do this one, we're gonna continue that cut going forward and then just swing the knife down. Right like that. Cut that. Cut that. We're really just trying to take the sharp points off. And then there you go. We got a pattern. We can take this, put it back on our car. Okay, so as for the blades, see we got a nice little overlap there. We got a nice little overlap there. Pattern's good, ready to shrink and then install. So for the blades, all my blades are by a company called NT Cutter. They make the red dot knives, and they also make really, really good blades. So these blades, and these blades. So the BA50 stainless steel, these are gonna be your main silver blades that I put in this knife right here. You can make all your cuts with this. What I find is stainless is great, but it's a softer metal, so it starts to dull out a little bit quicker. But this type of metal is less likely to leave a scratch on a window when you're cutting on the glass, because stainless has a similar hardness to glass itself. It doesn't mean it can't scratch, it means it's less likely to. You can definitely scratch. These two blades, you could use either of these for cutting top edges. I use a plastic knife for cutting the top edge, and I like these ones much better. I used to use these. These ones we're using for flat glass right now. But these ones are very thin by comparison, and they're carbon steel. So like these are almost like paper thin with how thin these are. They're like crazy thin. So what I find with these is that they're ultra sharp and super good at cutting out the top edge with less snagging. And when you pair it with a plastic knife, the nice thing about the plastic knife is like we're using both these things together. So when we're cutting a top edge, let's just shift this back up. Squeegee this so it's not gonna move. We're gonna use both of these together. So I put about that much blade just so I can get You hear it hit the top of the glass there? It's just way more stable. Where with my metal knife, if you just don't hold it right, it can skip off of the glass a little bit easier because we just don't have as much of a ridge on the end of it. But we want to use both. You take your knife, you poke it into the film, and then you're holding that plastic knife against the tint as you're making your cut. Right like that. So then you get a nice clean cut. Where with a metal knife and a stainless blade, the stainless is still great at cutting. You can get an amazing edge out of this. They tend to snag just a little bit more, so if you don't get that poke in quite right. But like I said, this is metal and there's not quite as much there. So when I poke this in, if I press too hard with my knife, what's then gonna happen is it's going to leave some type of a score line in the very edge of the tint right below where you cut, and we don't like that. So with the plastic, you can press a little harder still and not have to worry about that pressure. I want Detroit to answer this question when he has time because someone is telling me ceramic only has, sorry, let me switch over to this one. Higher heat rejection, and that doesn't have better visibility. Okay, so ceramic tint, we're actually using a ceramic tint right now. Ceramic really doesn't have a lot to do with visibility. It has everything to do with the amount of heat that it blocks. So as long as you're getting a high quality dyed carbon or ceramic film, you're gonna get a really good film. Ceramic is really just helping block more heat. But if you get a high quality ceramic and you don't have anything to compare it to, if somebody just tells you, hey, this film is clear because it's ceramic, you're just gonna believe them because that's just what you got. So they're all good. They're all dark on the outside, clear on the inside. It just depends on the quality of film that you get. You can have a bad quality ceramic and a good quality ceramic. Just like you can have a bad quality white paint and a good quality white paint. There's the same types of differences for window film as well. Okay, so as we're cutting with Sharpies, let me go grab a 36-inch roll. Do you need permits for this kind of business? You probably should have that kind of stuff in order. You're gonna want general business stuff, so like state licensing. But there isn't like a necessary tint license, but your building should be zoned for automotive stuff. How do you avoid the car battery from dying? We have a battery charger over there. We're gonna hook it up. See that guy right there? You can leave one of those, just a battery tender, right on the car. Okay, so here I've got a 36-inch roll. So this is great because you can actually cut 2 windows at the same time. So we could double cut with Sharpies, but the thing about the 36 is our bottom edge isn't lined up. We like this flat edge, but it becomes a little chaotic to try and line this up down there. We'd have to split it apart and swing it around, and that just wastes time. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take safety cutter and we're gonna split this right in half. So right along there. And then we're gonna take this pattern, spray this one, and then flip this over. I don't remember if Sharpies stick to this side quite as much as the other side, but we'll just keep going for it. Oh, the other part is, no, it will stick, but we're leaving a Sharpie line on that we'll try and remove with some alcohol or something. So we're gonna take this, snap this off. We'll use this for later. I always grab my knife. We're gonna use a Sharpie here. Take your Sharpie, and you're just gonna have to draw one extra line here. So right here, we're gonna mark where the bottom edge is. And then we're going to draw on this one. And then we're going to draw on this side too. So that's liner to liner. Yes, right now the tint side is facing outwards, which I do more for efficiency. So I'm usually doing this with hand cutting. So we're going to roll this down. I think my back tints are darker than 10%. They could be. And we're going to, again, snap one of the edges off this because we did some practice cuts and whatnot. So now we got a nice new section of blade right here. And then let's poke this in, and we're going to make our first actual cut with the knife. Right like that. Tear away. And then we can take this, take it over to our glass board, and we can trim off our edges. So one thing I want to kind of introduce as an idea, if you don't have a glass board, then that makes this style a little bit more difficult because you really want a different surface to cut this edge on. We don't even necessarily need a straight edge. You can just freehand it all the way down. We have this extra edge here, so we know where the bottom edge is, and we want to go about a 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch. We want to go a little bit farther down. So there you go. There's a little into that bottom edge in that seal. Now, let's say you don't have a glass board and you still wanted to do a Sharpie. This way isn't going to be quite as easy, but one thing that you can do is you can take your safety cutter and you can use this to make that cut. The reason why I don't just want to make this cut right in the middle of a customer's glass is because these cuts are going to be so in the middle somewhere that if our stainless happens to cut that window, then you're replacing the glass. Bye-bye any profit that I would have possibly made on that job. So if you take a safety cutter, you can get the same effect, but you just have to hold this a little bit straighter. And it's just a little bit more practice, but you can take the safety cutter, ride right outside that Sharpie line, and get that same cut that I would have just made on the glass board, but I made it right on the car itself with one of these. So all we need to do now is round corners, and then we got our pattern. But the nice thing about this is we just did 2 patterns at the same time. So we like hardly wasted any time in any type of additional steps. And because this is also facing outwards, I can take this pattern, peel it from itself, and then carry this over to the other side of the car, and then this is ready to install. The only thing I want to try right now real quick while it's here is I'm going to take some alcohol spray and see if we can get rid of the Sharpie mark. Otherwise, the only additional step that we need to do is make sure that we're drawing on the liner side and not the film side. Yep, that takes it right off. That'll be a little bit additional to do something like that. So if you happen to draw with at least one of these, you could always try a grease pencil instead of this. This honestly isn't that bad. It's coming off pretty quickly. But not necessarily something I want to spend a lot of time doing. But if you draw on the liner side, you're just going to peel the liner off. That's where your Sharpie line is, and then your Sharpie then disappears. So you can cut corners on the glass. You can. Here's my thought about cutting your corners on a customer's window instead of just doing like the full lines down the side. These small cuts are a lot smaller by comparison. So if you round corners kind of like out of the way and you're just careful and you're making small cuts, generally you're fine with doing something like that. It's when you're taking your knife and you have to make a really long cut in the middle of a window. So if I were to do any cuts, it's really just gonna be the corners, and they're kind of gonna be scooted out of the way when I'm making those cuts. But I wanna be careful with that kind of stuff. You could also even have a hard card, piece of plexi, just something. I don't know if I have an extra hard card right here. But for example, you could take something and put it on the back side. So I've done this before. It's a little tedious to do, but you could take a hard card, for example, and put it here, and then literally make your cut on the hard card instead of just doing it right on the glass to be a little bit safer. So anything to kind of keep that stuff a little bit safer. What's the white tape you use when using the back window? That's this stuff right here, Glass Aid. I'll take this, I'll put this right around the dot matrix border, and I'll cut on this stuff when I'm doing back window specifically. Because with the back window, we have the same issue, except we have a nice black border. So when you're cutting on this, that line shows a lot more than if you were to cut on a door window. That's an amazing shop. Thank you, I appreciate it. All right. While we're here, we could do a little shrinking. You scratched it. This is our class car. This is more than scratched up. Did you see all these little chop marks, especially down here? Oof, it's pretty bad. Oh, you know what? Actually, what we should do instead, we should take one of these patterns that we just buried and maybe let's cut another one. We'll do one more, and then let's install it. That's always a good segue. What's the address? We're in Sterling Heights, Detroit Tint Studio. So let's roll this back up. And we'll install something a little bit darker. I have a problem when I tint the windshield. A lot of tint piles up and I end up burning it. You need to shrink a little bit more than what you're doing. Because what you're doing is you're applying a little heat and just smashing the film down. You need to shrink almost as much film near the beginning as you do towards the outer edges. So we're gonna cut that in half. We could take this. Can you do the passenger window? Oh, like the front door versus the back door? I could. Okay, so we're gonna take our Sharpie, and then we're gonna draw this line here. Draw this line here. And then draw this line here. Let's put our Sharpie away, leave it covered. Facing down too. Look, it even says store tip down. Squeegee, and then we're gonna take this, roll that window down some, grab our knife, And then cut this top edge. Tear away. So we artificially cut our lines. We drew them. And so we're going to trim this out. You don't get film from Tint Depot? No, I've been, even when I worked with Tint Depot some, I still use GeoShield. I've never used I know it seems simple to use a Sharpie, but I never thought of that. Me too. I thought there were way more steps in using a Sharpie. They're very, very simple. It's just kind of crazy because like what you're just trying to do is define where your edges are. And then you're just going to cut outside those edges. So when you're doing that, the thing to consider is your top edge. And so you can just get a jump at cutting that, then mark your sides, and you're good. Is that a Hozilla spray tank? No, that is a tint keg. And then we're going to take it, bring it back over. And now let's just go right into the installation, and then we can do the front door. So for this, we'll go ahead and snap shrink. Let's grab, yeah, I actually have to refill my tint keg, so we'll do that right after. How long does it take? I would recommend shooting for like 2 hours or less, but we'll book people for 3. Do you recommend taking out the seals? It's just an entirely different way of installing. It makes it easier. The challenge is then learning how to remove the seals. So I never knew that that was an option. So the way that I tinted was never with removing seals. So I tend to not do that. But it's really, really popular to do. You just run a little steeper risk of like, let's say you scratch or break a little trim piece. It's generally cost is gonna like eat into like any margin that you're making on the job, which is why I tend to not do it. But that being said, it's not near that scary. It's just you always have your certain vehicles that you want to be extra cautious and careful about. Have you made 500K? At least today. When you were mobile, how far booked? For mobile, I was dependent on going to certain shops. So I never went from house to house. I had an account, and they would be booked out as busy as they were. So sometimes they would be booked out for at least like a month. But what I was doing, I was leveraging their client base. So I didn't have to worry about scheduling or anything. I just show up and I do the work. Okay, so even though this is a class car, I still like to cover the door panel. Class info is on the website. Were they tint shops or mechanics? Mechanics. So it was a glass shop. I think high quality glass shops are some of the best places to tint for. They were really good accounts. Because they're already dealing with windows, sometimes new windshields and all that. And so if somebody's looking to replace their windshield, sometimes they just want to get it tinted before it's installed. That makes windshields way easier. You get paid the same to do it. The other thing was a lot of people are just coming in for a windshield replacement and they want their front doors tinted. A lot of trucks, a lot of SUVs, Jeep Wranglers, that kind of stuff. Yeah, those all day long. One extra thing that I'm going to do is I'm gonna swap out the water on my keg. So I got old water sitting in the entire hose and the keg. So let me go ahead and swap that out first. If we're just using a spray bottle, I could get that going right quick. But I think more people, I use the keg. So I'll have this set up at the beginning of the day. And then I'll use it throughout the entire day. Let's do a battle. Why? All right, so this comes off. And then we need to release the air pressure. So loud noise. Right like that. Then we're gonna open this up. That drops down. Turn that out of the way. And we're just gonna dump whatever's left in here. Do you get paid off of TikTok? I have monetization enabled, but it's only for videos that are like over a minute. So I don't know how much. We have TikTok shop though, but we have an actual store. All right, we're gonna rinse this out just a little bit. And then we're gonna fill this up. And in the meantime, I need more tint slip. Ah! We'll do this a bunch of times. Actually, that's gonna get really tedious. There's actual tint slip in this container. So that's why I have these measuring cups here too, which is nice. So you can take this, you can fill this with the amount of soap that you need, but we actually have this hooked up to a gallon of tint slip. Because we're a tint shop, so of course the soap dispenser is attached to it. Where's the shop? Sterling Heights. Detroit Tint Studio. I bought from your shop, thanks for the fast shipping. Hell yeah. This is Racetech. This is the main competitor to Swiss Trax. I haven't seen Swiss Trax in person. Hey Matt, you're awesome. You inspired me to learn to tint my car. I wouldn't have been able to do it without... Dang, I appreciate you. Thanks, man. What plotters do you recommend to starting a tint business? It depends on what your budget. We have this crazy machine over here. This is a 60-inch Graphtec. That's expensive. We have a Workhorse 2 over here. This one's a lot more economical. I'd probably get the Workhorse 1. So we have about that much water in there, which is perfect. And so we're gonna take, we need 3 ounces. So I'll take a bottle of tint slip here. We should have a cap on that side. And then we press, and look, that fills up. Milliliters on this side, ounces on this side. So 3 gallons, I'm gonna put 3 ounces in here. 2 and 3, perfect. Then we're gonna close this back up. One thing that I wanna do is give this a little shake. And then we need to pressurize it. So I got an air compressor right up here. So I'm gonna put 90 PSI in this. You can go anywhere from like 60 up to 100 is really where I would max out. You have this pressure release valve here that's gonna go at about 100. But anything more than like 90, it gets pretty intense. What microphone? I have a Rode Wireless Go. So we're just gonna let that fill up for a second. This goes back on. Have you ever tried distilled water? We have a water filter in one of the cabinets that we still need to hook up that isn't yet. Other than that, no, not really, because the water that I'm around is generally pretty good. It's just like fairly clean city water, so we don't have to worry about hard water problems. Okay, so now that I've got like a 50-foot hose attached to this, we need to get rid of all the old water. I have a huge air compressor. Yeah, I just have a little one because we used to blow up balloons while we were streaming. That was a thing that we did. I got 90 PSI on my bike tires. Funny you mentioned that because you can take a regular tire filler, so you can get a cheap one that fills up your tires and whatnot. Just as long as it goes to like 100, you're fine. That's a sweet setup. Thank you. I appreciate it. What plotters do you recommend for starting a tint business on a budget? Why don't you stream on YouTube anymore? We are streaming on YouTube right now. I take offense to that. For a budget plotter, look up Workhorse 1. This is the Workhorse 2, but look up the Workhorse 1. I don't want to get into a rant on plotters right now. Okay. Oh, wait. No, this is shrunk. All right. So we're ready to clean and install this. So what I need to do is grab my razor blade, grab a towel, and then grab my sprayer. Not answering to YouTube though. Am I not? There's a lot of comments coming in on both TikTok and YouTube. So I'm answering what I can. Okay, so we're going to, I like to start with razoring the bottom section because we're gonna immediately roll this down a couple inches here and expose the top. So I just wanna loosen that dirt up. Then we're going to blade the rest of it. What do you think of T-View? T-View is great practice film. I don't know how long it'll last. It's a cheap dyed film. You can't expect it to necessarily last long. We're gonna wipe the top edge of the window, and then we're gonna squeegee this off. I need my pink clean. Do you need to be a member to order GeoShield? No, you can go to 313tint.com. We're gonna squeegee this top to bottom, overlapping strokes. We want everything in the middle to be dry, and we're taking all that dirt and we just moved it over here. So then we take a tri-edge card, swipe down, and then go back here and do the same thing, swipe down. So this window is ready to install right now. Do a little flush on the sides, mist, and then we're gonna peel our tint and see how this Sharpie lined up. Start with peeling the corner here, pull straight down, keep that pull close to the window so you don't just yank it off, and you can see Sharpie line was on the liner portion, so then that just gets peeled off. How long did it take you to learn? I didn't really intend on getting into window tint. When you pick it up right here in the center, where that liner kind of crosses over, and that's where you can balance it on your fingertips. But it took me about a year before I felt pretty competent with everything, but there's far more resources now than there used to be. So the average person with the right mindset doesn't take as long. So we want to make sure this side edge is flat. And see how this other side is just kind of like chilling back here? Look, that liner is even keeping it from touching, which is nice. So we want to take this and we want to slide it over into the side, but I can't do that if I don't do something about this right here, or else it just pushes into the side. So we want to take just the tint, we're going to roll it up a little bit, and we're going to flatten it out. Now I'm not creasing it, it's just bent. And we're going to take this and we're going to slide that into the side seal. See how easy that was? And then same thing with this side. We're going to take the tint, we're going to roll this portion up, make sure our film is kind of slid back here, and then we're gonna push it over into the side. And then you don't have any hangups. You're not giving your windows time for dirt to rush back in. So now we wanna take this, we wanna line it as close to the top edge as we can. And then we're gonna take a squeegee blade. I like to use these now a lot. Hybrid is my favorite squeegee. I use this for basically everything, but the pink clean is nice because it's got a really soft blade, but it also doesn't require you to put much pressure, and then it flexes against the glass really, really well. So when you do that, you can actually get it to start tacking up where you need it to go without putting a lot of pressure on it. And it still leaves some in between the glass, so if you need to do some fine adjustments, but you want to start it to basically line up here without you having to basically like squeegee it down and then bump it back, squeegee it down, bump it back. So that's why I like using one of these squeegees. And then you want to push a little bit harder when you can feel the window locking a little bit more in place. Your second pass can use a harder squeegee that just presses out a little bit more water. But you could do everything with just this squeegee. I have been for a long time. You'll especially see it on really curved windows. But then we're gonna take our tri-edge card. This card has some flex to it. So we wanna use that flex and press it against the window in a way that's gonna get that edge to flex against the window. And then we're gonna use that to just squeegee those bubbles straight up and out. Same thing with this side. This plastic, this is a really tint safe plastic. This isn't just your run-of-the-mill scratchy ass plastic. You can take this and be fairly aggressive and not worry about scratching your tint. You still wanna make sure your edges are wiped off before you do that, but that's what I use to lock these sides in. And then we're gonna roll up our window. And now, since we rolled up the window, that brought some dirt with us. So we wanna rinse that out. And then we're gonna peel the liner, just peel that straight out. And we're gonna re-wet this some, just so it slides a little better, but I like to rinse underneath it, then pull my liner, and then wet the tint so then it can slide. Then we're gonna grab our tucking tool, the shank, our funny little crooked butter knife. We're gonna take one corner here, we're gonna pull back the seal. Get that corner in there, and then also make sure this leading edge is flat. Shuffle, 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 until it starts hitting the door panel, come back over, and then we're gonna do the exact same thing here. Pull the seal back, start shuffling that into the side, and then that's where it starts, it's hung up right on the door panel. So at this point, we just need to pick this up, take all that slack and lift it. And now all your slack is right here, and notice how this is right above the seal. You can take your shank, and now we can use this shank to pull back, and you'll notice it's a little hung up on the seal. Just pick it up and finesse it so you can get that. See how that's out of my way? And then we can just push that right into the seal. Ta-da! And then we're gonna go back to the pink clean, squeegee some bubbles out towards the sides. Can we order pre-cut tint? No, I don't do any tint kits. I have a plotter, but I don't want to do tint kits. Tint kits are tedious. There we go. Our window is tinted. If you have creases at the side, is it possible to heat them out? Yes, absolutely. They're usually going to be very small folds that'll keep the tint from laying down. So we have a small one right here. And so I could do a couple things. I could walk away and let it naturally dry out for a little while. That's one good thing. But if you want to speed up the process, you can do it with a heat gun. Just be careful because you're introducing a lot of heat into one spot, but this is how you're going to do your touch-ups. If you're not used to heating the side, so I want to heat right near the spot where that spot is, but I don't want to distort or melt the rubber trim. So glass will soak up some heat. So what you can do is you can heat it up, back off, heat it up a little more, back off, and that glass is going to start soaking up the heat. You can also take a card, block off that edge, and then you can just be a little bit more direct. I would take a different card, like a hard card, something that's a little bit more heat resistant, and just like physically, a little piece of metal or something, literally keep it out of the way. But we're going to heat it up till, if I put my finger on the inside, it's going to start to sting to hold my finger here for very long, and that's a perfect temperature. You just want to get it really hot, and then it's going to dry out that finger really fast. So we're going to take our, here, let me, 1 second, there we go. So we're going to take our card, where is that? It's right here. And then we're just going to push that out, and there you go, it's gone. But that's how I'm going to do every touch-up. I'm going to heat it up to the point where it basically starts to dry it out. Any suggestions on a convex back window? Can you give me an example? Is it like this? Or is it something that goes inwards, which I like never see? Have you ever done a 2015 BMW 3 Series? Mm-hmm. Yeah, BMWs, Audis, those are all going to be a little tighter. It's just German engineering. They generally are. Not super fun. One little piece of advice that I can get you to make the window a little bit easier is if you're not removing the seals, cut your patterns just a little bit slimmer on the sides and a little slimmer on the bottom. I'd say like the majority of people that are getting into tint, they make their patterns super long, and then it's like near impossible to tuck into the bottom. Like they'll take their pattern and they'll drag it all the way down to here. The best, like I'll drag my pattern to like here. So it'll go like a quarter, maybe like a ½ inch down into the seal. You just want to get a little past the seal. But if you're concerned with going like so far into the seal so it doesn't peel back up, the problem is you have to crunch it into the window. So then you just create other problems because your tint isn't laying flush underneath that seal anyways. What's the average tint quote for this car? So if we were doing our cheapest film, the sides and the rear would start at $290. With a windshield, it would be $450. If that was carbon, we would do $350 for all the sides and the rear, and it would be $550 for all the sides and the rear and the front windshield. If this was ceramic, we would start $450 for all the sides and the rear, and then an additional $250 to cover the shield, so then it'd be $700 total. That's what I'm going to quote on this. That's what I'm going to quote on that. That's what I'm going to quote on bigger SUVs, trucks. Most things are going to fall in this range just because it's for me, it's more about the time that we set aside. I used to charge a little bit different based on vehicle type, and it's totally normal to charge a little more for a bigger SUV. But I just like to simplify a lot of my pricing because we'll generally just spend 3 hours without a windshield, 4 hours if it's getting a full windshield, because you know, we'll definitely go faster than that if we're not doing any content around it. But if we want to do like a live stream or something, that's where our pricing pretty much stands. That's expensive, that's a good price. It's completely subjective. It just depends on the type of people that you're tinting for and like where your demographics are. So if you're cheaper price, you have to tint a lot more. Higher prices, you don't have to tint quite as many cars, and it's more quality focused. It's always nice to do both, like higher prices and more cars, but you got to be realistic with where you are. Is it legal to put clear ceramic on a commercial vehicle full windshield? Probably not. But the thing is, like, there are state laws that dictate shades. So if you fall within that shade range, then you're fine. But the other thing is, if it's clear and you don't see it on there, would you ever get in trouble for it? Because would they even know that it's there? Okay, so we're gonna do the front door now. And the front door is very similar to the back door. We just have a plastic edge here. So that makes it just a little bit different. And it also is a little shorter on the front than it is on the rear. Is it a bad idea to clean the windows with a microfiber towel before tinting? No, that's actually exactly what I just did. I have a ton of dirt and dust that this car is just sitting outside. So I'll just wipe it off. And you can see my blade is getting pretty low. So at this point, I'm gonna swap this out with a brand new blade. And then we're also gonna encourage TikTok to keep going. What's the darkest tint? The darkest that I have is a 2%. Oh my God, twice? Verification complete. Okay, so we'll take a blade, put it in our knife. Price for 2 front windows to match the rear. I start those at, right now we do 120, 160 for carbon, 200 for ceramic. And then this blade, we still got quite a bit of blade on here. So we'll keep going with that. We got our Sharpie. So let's go. What blades do you use? These are NT cutter. So these are BA50 stainless steels. And then these are BA54Ps. I used those for the top edges, and I use the stainless BA50Ps for everything else. 60-degree stainless steel for most of my cutting. Okay, so patterns here. First step, we're gonna take this and we're gonna basically tuck our film into the bottom. Lined up there. And then we're gonna tack this in place. Let's get rid of this excess film because we just don't need it. Available at your online store? Yes. Yeah, most of what we use is available there. Okay, Sharpie. Take a Sharpie and then just start drawing one side there. And then you're gonna go this side, tuck that tint in there a little bit, and you're just marking that line. Is charging $75 for 2 front windows Pro Classic a good deal? Yeah, I start Pro Classic at 120. I don't think front doors should really be under 100. Like right around there. And full cars I don't think should be under 250. It makes it really hard to grow a business. But if you do a lot of front doors, you could potentially mark them down to like still like 80. As long as you're doing a lot of them in a day. So you could do a set of doors inside of a half an hour. And if your whole day is just doing front doors, then you have a pretty good income there. $5 is legal in the back. In Michigan, yeah, you can go as dark as you want. Okay, so now we need to trim. So this is where I marked my Sharpie line. So I want to go outside that about 1/4 of an inch. And then we're just going to round our corner. And then same thing with this. We're going to continue this going straight. We're going to round our corner. It looks like it tilted up. So we're going to go back and trim it a little bit more. You can always trim some extra film up. You can't add film. So if you have to cut more than once, that's fine. And the same thing with here. No, you can still get in trouble. It just depends. Cop on a bad day. Like if you're tinting your windows in a way that the state doesn't want you to, then just like speeding, it's only a matter of time before you cross a cop on a weird time or whatever, and then you're the target. With that being said, it's a lot more common than it used to be. So in my opinion, as long as you kind of blend in with traffic, you're not overly tinting your car, then you're generally not going to have issues, and you're definitely not causing any problems. A Denali 2024 Acadia. How much to tint all windows and the front windshield? It would start at $450. Carbon would be $550, and then ceramic would be $700. You didn't cut the bottom edge. No, I didn't have to because I used the flat edge of the film, and I lined it up here. So that was the first thing I did, was line up the bottom, drag it down where I need to, tack it in place, cut the sides, and so that saved me a cut. Do you ever tint darker than legal? What? No, never. I don't have a catalog or anything for over like 3 years on YouTube of full live streams that came out of here or anything. That's wild. Who would do that? Opinion on flex film? Not a fan. I like the Sharpie method. Do you double cut with the Sharpie method? Yeah, we actually just did an example a little earlier. So what you're doing is the exact same thing. You're putting another layer on here that's opposite. You can still draw on there, and then double cut, save yourself a bunch of time, but you're not doing anything that risks hurting the car, which is what I think is really cool about the Sharpie method. It just makes things a lot easier. We need a lesson on shrinking. I recently had the edge of my film crinkled up and get hard. Is shrinking door windows or shrinking back windows? How much would a BMW all around be? Well, if it was an Audi, it would be, let's say it was carbon. It would be $350 without a windshield. It would be $550 with the windshield. But since you got a BMW, I'm going to charge $800. Have you guys ever heard that meme? Where, like, somebody will say their car's something different. They'll say they have an Audi, or they'll say they'll have a Honda Accord and then show up with a BMW so they don't get quoted more. I would quote you the same price. Frameless door windows. I do have something over there that I could do frameless door windows on. You're not going to do it with a Sharpie, though. At least most of the window cannot be done with a Sharpie because you have an exposed edge on the sides. So you're probably going to be cutting on the car. I tried tinting my windows, and when I rolled my windows down, it would peel up. That's because the bottom edge was not locked down right. It's a pretty normal thing to have happen. That's why I suggest don't tuck your film super far down, especially in the beginning. It just doesn't necessarily turn out great. Like, that's where you have some problems. Keep your patterns a little shorter and just get below the seal, and you're not going to have any issues doing that. Do you have to have a tax ID to purchase GeoShield? No, 313tint.com. You can just purchase GeoShield. What type of tint are you doing right now? This is a 50% Pro Nano ceramic. This is one of the films that we use at the tint class. We'll either be using the Pro Nano ceramic or the C2 carbon. Can I put a clear porcelain tint on the curb? What? Can you spell? And then I can answer your question. What's the difference between Pro Nano and ceramic? Pro Nano is a ceramic film. So so you have your material types, and then you have your names. So like a truck, that would be the type, and then Ford would be the brand, right? And then you can get into submodels too. So like what truck? F-150, Ranger, or like what are we doing? So with tint, your average consumer is going to say either tint or ceramic. They're not really going to know brands. Tinters are going to know brands more. So Pro Nano ceramic is like saying a Ford F-150 truck is what that is. So like if I were to paint my house white, I wouldn't just go in and say I need white paint. I mean, they would say like what brand of white paint do you want? Tint's the same way. Is the pink squeegee soft? Yes, it is Fusion's softest squeegee. Sorry, I'm doing this by voice while I'm driving, not sure what it's actually saying. That's a problem for both of us then, isn't it? Is it the same as detailers knowing different brands of compound? Yes, exactly. All right, so we're gonna slide this in. So first thing I'm gonna do is right at the bottom there, just kind of fold that up, get that nice and flat, and then I can push this into my side seal. And then we're gonna go to this side. We're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna pull our film back. And now I just don't have as much room to tuck here, but I can still roll my tint up and push this into the side. When you shrink, is it film side to the window? No, it's generally the liner side facing out, because we're shrinking it to the window that we're installing it on. So when you're cutting, when you're shrinking, when you're doing everything on the outside, the liner side is facing you. That helps protect the film, but also you have to peel it and then install it. So we're gonna line this up as close as we can. I'm gonna try something here. I'm a little over at the very top there. I'm gonna try a little file trick here, but I'm gonna get most of this squeegeed out before I do that. What's the best way to avoid contamination when working in the seals? Best way is to tape the sides. That'll help keep some of that dirt right out of the sides. Whoops. You see how that grabbed and then pushed the window tint up? I don't want to do that. I want to squeegee close to the side, but don't ever try and dig that in there. They're spongy, so if you just jam this into the seal, you're going to rip your tint back out. My customer has a Honda Del Sol. Oh, the guy that taught me how to tint had a Del Sol. I actually have never had one. I know that back window is one of the few that goes up and down. I don't know how to give you advice on that one. I genuinely don't. I would have to figure it out too, just as much as you would. Okay, so I have a little needle file here. I'm just gonna try pushing this forward. Hardest vehicle that you ever tinted? I got my ass kicked pretty hard by like an old Beretta. I should have just dried this out just a little bit more. That helped out. But it could have been better if I had dried it out first, which is usually what I do. That's the nice thing about these files, though, is you can actually get right into the top of those corners pretty well. So if you ever overlap the corners, dry them out a little bit more and use that, and then you don't have to like pull it back and retrim it or anything like that. So then we're gonna roll this up. We're gonna rinse that down a little bit, pull out our liner, and then flush this out a little bit more. What type of file? I keep coming back to these types of files. This was from a little needle file kit from Harbor Freight. It's starting to show a little bit of rust. But I've bought lots of random files just to try them out. I keep going back to like the really small needle files, like the flat ones. They work the best for me. Where can I get tint? 313tint.com. Ooh, I need my shank. Where is that? Ooh, it's over here. So I need my tucking tool. So I'm gonna grab this. My crooked butter knife here. Can a curved windshield be completely covered? Yes. We do them all the time. So I'm gonna start with this front corner here, just because I'm already looking at it. I'm gonna pick this up. I'm gonna pull this seal back. And we're gonna tuck this in so this leading edge is flat. The panel comes up a little bit above that seal. So I can't tuck this corner in quite as much. And then I go to this other side. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna pull the seal back. And then I'm gonna shift this into there. And then I have this that is bunched up here. So I need to take the slack and I need to lift it above my seal. So I'm gonna take that, gonna gather that above my seal. We're gonna start at one corner here, and we're gonna start pulling it and kind of like shifting it downwards. And when you're pulling it, you're trying to loosen the seal up enough to get that film to drop past it. And then that usually allows you to go across, and anywhere that you see hung up on your seal, you see that right there? That's hung up on my seal. So this isn't gonna push down into the seal unless I get that under my seal. So, see how that went? And now the rest of it is gonna go down. Get this started getting a little squirrely here. Flatten that out. Have you done a Tesla Model X? Actually, no. It's like the only Tesla that I haven't got. That makes like squeegee this out. I'll start towards the middle and kind of work my way down and out and just kind of like stretch this film out the corners. You can see these. So I'm taking those and I'm pulling them outwards. Has the soap/water ever damaged the wires? No, it's never happened. Never fried a random module because of too much water or anything. Yes, you can. Most cars are fairly water resistant. So for example, I could do this on this car for a very, very long time. And this car would be okay. Not every car is like that. But what tends to happen is if I were to do this, what happens is water drips down and usually comes right out drain holes at the bottom. There's a plastic membrane in between the switches and stuff and the door. So even on the outside here, you see this hole? That hole right there? So when this car is sitting out in the rain, all this water is like running down into certain places that like it's getting in the door. But they manufacture these to account for that, so water will drip right down and out those drain holes. As long as they're not plugged up. Do you recommend mirror tint, and is it legal? I don't know of any. Actually, you could do an architectural film, but is it legal? You're gonna have to check your state laws. I just tinted a 2021. Oh, do you get contamination from the file? If your pattern is not dried out, so like up here, what can happen is the file then pulls this film back some, and then little bits, because you're literally shaving it off, can get into your tint. So I would definitely recommend to make sure that that corner is stuck. What's been fun about these files though is like I've been able to just like stick it down and trim and just like file that edge if I messed up my corner a little bit, and actually get that without having to dry out the window much. But it's kind of like a hit or miss type of thing. The safer thing is to definitely dry it out. Dry it out and then go from there. What's the time and length you tell customers to not roll your windows up and down? I'll usually tell them 2 to 3 days is usually a good time frame. If they accidentally roll the windows down right away, just like you saw me do there, they're going to be fine in the vast majority of cases. If you seal your edges down right, you can roll them up and down immediately, but your film is not completely dried out yet. So it doesn't mean you're going to damage anything, but it's good to leave the windows up just for a couple days, and it's also easier to explain that because your customers have basically heard that every tint shop says leave your windows up, and a lot of them are fast to blame the customers for issues. If they get their windows tinted, accidentally roll them down within the first day or two, there's quite a few shops that'll then charge the customer to fix it, even though it was like an honest mistake. So telling people 2 to 3 days in the summertime, and then in the wintertime a little bit longer is good. How do I explain to people that tint reduces the heat in the car? With good old-fashioned marketing. Also having proper demonstrations. So let's run up front, and I'll show you guys my tint. This is Mark, by the way. He's been in chat helping. Hello. So we're gonna take this heat box right here. And then this is how you guys are gonna be able to know that any change is really happening. So I'm gonna turn this meter on, and then I'm gonna turn this heat box on. So I'm gonna adjust this meter until we get close enough that this registers about 300. It's just a nice round number. So this box has glass slides on it with the different films that I carry and install. So this is the easiest way for me to explain it. If you put your hand in front of here, I can feel a lot of heat coming off of this bulb. This is dyed 20%. Meter at 300, I don't know what this means yet. And then as soon as I switch this over to carbon, it goes from 300 to then 150. So there's less heat now because of the film, same shade, but different film type, so that helps block heat. And then you go to ceramic, and then that blocks even more heat. So now I can barely feel any heat coming through there. I also have a ceramic in 70% that I can show people, and then I have a dual layer ceramic that knocks it down even farther if we want to get crazy. No tint sits at 300. Dyed sits right around the same. Look, there's like virtually no difference between having a 20% dyed film and having no tint. So in terms of heat, other benefits that you get though is 20%. Your car will look significantly cooler. Your car will also, it'll be like putting sunglasses on. So that kind of stuff is nice. That's why I carry 3 different types of film, and that's what I use to help explain the differences. All right, let me switch this back really quick. But yeah, if you don't have a heat box and you're selling window tint, like it's like trying to, like there's just no way to explain it then. Like no, it's the quickest, easiest way to explain, hey, what's the difference? That's the difference. What pre-cut machine do you use? I have a Graphtec FC 9000. So this machine right here. Oh, now everything's backwards. Everything's backwards. Except now. But tick-tock, tick-tock. There you go. Okay, so on this, though, this is a Graphtec FC 9000. This is my preferred machine. This is kind of like going all out on a platter cutting system and machine, along with software. And then over here, we have a more budget setup. So this is a workhorse too. So this will still cut out really, really good patterns. It's just the machine doesn't have as many good creature comforts. So like build quality isn't as nice. Rollers are in some random places. So you have to shuffle things around. And then when I'm moving my cut head, I have to go into the sub menu, push that first, and then I can move my cut head. Not a big deal, right? Well, line it up there, push enter. If I accidentally hit this button without going into my sub menu first to move it, what then happens is then I start changing all my settings, and those settings are really important to keep the same. What brand vehicle you tint the most? We're in the Metro Detroit area, so we got a lot of the big three. So we do a lot of Rams, F-150s, those types of trucks and SUVs and cars and stuff. A lot of domestic stuff. I don't see as many Toyotas. I don't see as many Hondas. I don't see as many Lexus. I get the occasional Tesla, and you know, your occasional, I don't know, I got a whole library of stuff on the channel. Just go through the library. You'll see kind of what we get on average. No customers today? No, actually, it's slower day. It's been that way for a minute here. So nothing crazy going on. So when that happens, I like to come on here and do some demos. I also just finished my streaming setup, and this has been working awesome. I'm really happy with this one. What's your tip on doing back glasses of Ultimas? It's almost like you saw the Ultima back window. Tesla demo. You want to see like a door window on a Tesla? How do you price tint out? It depends. Yes, sir. Ugh, all right. All right, I guess we'll do it. So we'll do a hand cutting demo on it. But pricing, call around and just kind of see where, let's see, back ultra wide. There we go. I don't want to see a Tesla. Well, you're gonna see it now. We had one person say yes. So that means by popular demand. We gotta switch this back again. This requires 2 pushes. There we go. Okay, so first thing on here. But yeah, call around, check your competition. Reason is, my phone's over here. That unlocks it. Reason is you want to know what other customers are hearing in terms of like their own pricing. So if you call around and kind of get an idea of what the market is already doing, then you get an idea of like where you can follow up in that. Rip. There we go. Missing the crazy headgear for your filming. Rip file. You broke my file, damn it. All right, let's get our roll of film. Also, we need to set up a spray bottle because I don't think the hose is quite gonna make it, and I don't feel like dragging it over there. How did that just break? It's a Harbor Freight file. That's how. I guess they don't like sideways pressure. What? Use the Master Blaster.
See how you feel about it.
Okay. All right, we'll give the Master Blaster. So this is that bottle. Those are easy to come by. We'll try the Master Blaster.
No, not this trigger. The other one I had a slippery one.
Okay, then we'll put some soap in here. Just a couple little, for good measure. These tiles are from RaceDeck. RaceDeck.com. Super spray. And then we got a roll of film, right? That's over there. A towel. This is GeoShield. This is going to be 50% Pro Nano. We'll go through. Where's the Tint Buster sprayer? Yeah, I misplaced my charger. I know where the sprayer is. I gotta do something with the. Charger. I gotta find it. Because it's not like a USB charger. For a charger, 480 for the back. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, this one's mine. They were doing something out in the parking lot, so I pulled it in. Okay, so first step, we need a piece of film. Cool, thank you. We're gonna shut this down. We're gonna see about lining this up. So cutting your tassellage, I would suggest also cutting the bottom. You don't have to, but it's nice to. Trim that off. All right, so we're gonna throw that on the floor. So we're gonna start with our pattern here. I'm gonna trim the bottom edge first. So my blade is gonna stick out really about that far. We're gonna make our first cut right here on the bottom edge. And make sure this is just kind of lightly tacked in place. Stainless steel blade. We're gonna poke that into the bottom here. We're gonna tear away, tear away. So now we've matched that bottom with the curve on that window there. Sharpie method looked nice. Why don't a lot of people use it? Because I didn't teach it for a long time. Truth be told, I didn't know much about it, and I got so it's like why don't more people bottom load? Why don't more people do this? Not a lot of people share and talk about how they tint, and it's just not like when you get really proficient with using a knife, you just find yourself going back to using a knife. Meanwhile, the people that did use Sharpies, they just like don't talk about it very much or don't show it very much. So then people go with like the most popular looking method, and you have me to blame for that. But that's how I was taught. So it's not that it's wrong, it's that you get so used to doing things one way, and then you don't realize how good another way is. So for this one, I'm gonna use a knife for the whole thing. I guess you could use a Sharpie right here. And we're gonna tear that aside. So that's one cut that we made. I lowered this down just a little bit. So when you're doing a frameless, I can't just cut exact all the way around. I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna drag it over a little bit, and then I'm gonna lock it in place, and then I gotta drag it over a little bit more after we make one cut here. But if I just trim this all the way around, what's gonna happen is it's gonna overlap my edge as soon as I try and line it up. So I'm gonna shift it over there a little bit, and then we're gonna cut this edge, because we don't wanna shift it over very far. We're gonna take this, cut all the way down, tear away, and then we're going to loosen our pattern back up, and then we're gonna shift it over a little bit more this way. Shift it over a little bit more to the left. And then we're gonna lock this back in place. It's probably the part I don't like doing most about this window, is like having to try and line that up perfectly. And then we're gonna cut this edge right here. So this is the rest of our top edge. So, and then the rest of this is gonna be rounding corners, shrinking, and then installing. But that's how I'm gonna get the majority of my pattern. So we would cut this, round that corner, take this, why do you have two knives? Good question. So when I'm cutting my top edges, I like to use a thinner carbon steel blade. This is sharp and works really, really well. But because it's a carbon steel, means it's way more likely to scratch my windows. It will scratch my windows. Stainless has a similar hardness to glass. So if you're gonna cut on the glass, so I could take these over. I could take this over to my board and round this there. But if I'm using light pressure and honestly just doing the small stuff, I'll just do that right on the car itself. Especially if it's my own. Okay, now we're gonna shrink this. So since this window is a little bit more curved, we're not gonna be able to snap shrink it in quite the same way. We're gonna do a little bit of a, you'll see. There's a bunch of ways that you can shrink it. But we have a lot of water in these fingers, so they're gonna start to shrink near the top, and then you're gonna basically be able to shrink them and kind of split them apart. But anytime they're doing this and they're spreading out like that, you want to kind of like shift them over so they're being a little bit more vertical, and then you're going to shrink and shrink. Longer than Stone Cold's been cold. The inside? Yeah, it'll get on the inside. I was wondering if Apex is better than Pro Nano. Apex is better than Pro Nano because it's 2 layers of ceramic, whereas Pro Nano is just 1 layer. I almost had a little mistake there. A little bit more tension than I'd like to see. But I don't even have a car. That's okay. You don't need a car to be able to tint cars. I used to work with people that would ride in on a bicycle. Generally, those people had drinking problems, though. So they didn't do that by choice. So there we go. That's shrunk. That's ready to install. Can I get a door cover? And then I should be good. Yes. It's okay. I get it.
Oh, sorry.
Rip. Rip. Hmm?
Does that set them up?
I think so. Yeah, C2 carbon is like Carbon Plus, except Carbon Plus has ceramic, but they rebranded Carbon Plus to C2 ceramic. So same film. Do you break your blades every time? I break them very often. Very, very often. Because every time you're cutting, you're pushing this blade against glass and like trimming along it. So this edge is gonna dull really, really quickly. And I can't stress how much softer stainless steel is. So it's really thin stainless. It will very quickly. It will dull out really quickly. I gotta set up that monitor for chat too. That's actually really easy to do. I just gotta get the link over there. But I hear you guys. Squeegee this off. This has a 50% ceramic on it already, so I'm not gonna scrape it. Let's go ahead and peel this though. So I might be weird, but I bottom load these without pulling the seals. And that's the way I've done like every Frameless door. So Camaros, Mustangs. I don't know. I didn't know anything about pulling seals, and the guy that I learned from didn't teach me either, so I learned how to do this in most cases. But pulling the seals is definitely helpful. Because then you're kind of fighting up against the seal. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna line it right against the bottom, and I'm gonna start with that front corner. I'm just gonna pull the seal back, and you can see it kind of drops right into the seal, and then you put a little pressure, and then the whole thing goes in without having to like pull out the seal. How do you make the window go up on a frameless door? You take a file and you break it off. And then you use a different tool, like a knife. Like a screwdriver or something. And see, this is the latch. This goes into here. So this is how the car thinks the door is closed. So you just trick that latch, and then your window rolls up. But on this type of window, this is especially why I like this type of squeegee. There was a lot more curve in here. So if I press really hard with a harder squeegee to get the bubbles out, sometimes you start moving, pushing your film around. And the most important part of this window is trying to get this edge as perfectly lined up as you can. So I want to get all these bubbles kind of pressed out without disturbing the placement of the film. And this tends to do a really good job because it's a very soft squeegee and it flexes on the window really, really well. So it almost acts like a soft brush. And you kind of like brush out a lot of the bubbles. That way you're getting some of the water out and you're allowing that glue to start bonding to the glass. So then I want to take a harder squeegee and then just be a little bit more direct and push extra water. Here, let me find, I was going to try and find a spot here. There we go. You can almost see that pooling of water that's still coming out. So you just want to make sure you don't have to like, but you just want to be pretty direct about that getting pressed out. And there you go. So that's how you're gonna tint a Tesla door. Honorable mention too is overlapping the edge just a little bit and then torching and drawing out your edges and then taking a knife and then shaving that off on the inside of the window. But since mine's already tinted here, I'm just gonna take this. I'm gonna peel this off. I have 50% Apex on here right now. This was 50% Pro Nano. So this is gonna be the better ceramic of the two. But I'm looking to probably redo my windshield with another film. It's not that I'm complaining about Apex, is that there's other GeoShield films to practice and try out.
Thanks, man.
I appreciate you doing the demo. You're very welcome. If you guys comment a lot right now, it's not coming through my headphones, so you can, I got the Brian voice going on right now. Text-to-speech stuff.
The way you explain it is so easy to understand. God bless. Smiley face. Yo.
That's what you guys sound like right now. Which is one of the best voices, and it's been working so well.
How much to tint a mega camp? Oh, now I know your secret. Test. What tough G? Learning by looking.
So we take this window, and it's a browser window, and so that TV's mirrored to this one. But the nice thing is that this is also in just a browser, so I can pop up the chat on like any TV around here. I just gotta preload the links on the rest of them.
Good afternoon from Southern California. Test boop boop.
Test
How
boop
do you
boop.
get your cam wireless? I wanted to stream car shows. Mind blown.
How do you get your cam wireless? I want to stream car shows. So this is just an iPhone.
Correct. Is expel film good?
But I have kind of an elaborate setup.
I want to learn, but I'm in college.
So for example, let's use this phone
Using a good
as an example. So I'm using Streamlabs right now, and so if I put this right on here,
schedule and appointment.
oh, this is my case, by the way. This is my favorite phone case ever.
My father is
I have to take this off first, and then I can. So let me take that off. So then this goes here, and then there you guys are. So why are you being funny here? I'm right here. Oh, that's goofy.
W phone case.
Hello. Yeah, there we go. That's better. Why is it trying to go to the back one? That's like
Put me
super
on
goofy.
screen. Are there tint regulations for each state on how dark it can be? Do you know why my work
Huh.
prints two
Okay.
sides, no
That's
matter
goofy.
which way
I don't know why it's being weird right now. But anyways, I put it on these things, and then they'll kind of track me around. But the phone streams to a little black box up here, and then that box takes it to an HDMI out, and then that runs to the computer, so that goes off of OBS. But in order to do that, you have to be on the same network. You might as well just, if you're like out and about, you might as well just literally stream to TikTok off of your phone. But the nice thing is the way I have it set up right now is I'm streaming to TikTok, and I'm also streaming to YouTube.
colon face turquoise covering eyes.
So
Do you know when work or splotters
Let me
will be
pop.
back in
Let me
stock?
pop this one back.
How could I get started
Microphone
with business?
comes through here, which also I gotta add some sounds, but ah. It's got like a little mixer board, which is kind of fun. I think I got like cheesy stuff in here too, like.
Okay, doctor, thank you. That's awesome. Damn double stream.
Yeah, this has been a lot of work to kind of figure this out. Let me switch this back now. I still want to kind of refine it a little bit more. There's that.
Yeah, well, it could-
And then we can more, and then flip camera. There we go. So yeah, this'll track me, which is really nice.
clapping hands,
But I'm just using,
clapping hands.
you've probably seen this all over TikTok or whatever, but this actually works really, really well. It's not quite as, you know, easy to maintain as putting like a GoPro on my head. This kind of gets in the way, so I'm not really going to be able to do windshields and stuff with this sitting here.
Oh, I remember the videos in them. Wow.
But it's nice that I can leave it like this and just kind of walk around and do stuff and then put the camera right here and actually give that POV view for doors, because I know that's really, really helpful to try and see all the fine little details. But this has been fun. Hope you guys had fun today. Few door windows, that kind of stuff. Any other questions?
Long time ago.
You can just chill for a minute. I can answer some questions. And then, what type of glass do you use for a peel board? Ooh, I just put this down. For a peel board, you can use like any type of annealed glass. You can use like any glass. Glass is going to be the best. So you can go on Marketplace. These are really thick. Like if you've ever been to like a hotel, the shower doors and stuff like that, like this is some thick tempered glass. These were custom barn doors that we had done. So I could keep a glass board on the front, and then we can still get at the cabinets, which is really nice. So these will slide out of the way. But if you leave the drawers open, then you're gonna hit the drawer. And then we frosted them. So it's kind of just like an accent piece. But you can go on Marketplace and find glass that that people are just throwing away.
How to get started working at a shop.
You know, one thing I forgot. Here.
Is there a way to fix?
I forgot how much it's actually coming through the computer. I'm so used to just hearing it and trying to talk over it, but how much do those glasses weigh? Not very much. This really isn't very uncomfortable. The more fun. It doesn't stop here. So these are my other pair of glasses, and I put a bracket here. So on some of my YouTube videos, I put a little bracket here so I can take this camera and just do that. And then you got an easy POV angle. Tint your glasses, but they're already self-tinting. So when I go outside, they're just like UV tinting glasses. How do you get started working at a shop? It's just a numbers game. Go and apply to different shops. If you know how to tint, it shouldn't be hard to get a job at most shops. But if you don't know how to tint, it is tough to get shops to teach you, because why should they teach you? If anything, the shops are always worried about teaching people and then those people running off and doing their own business, because that's what a lot of people, if we're being honest, that's what a lot of people want to do. So it's not as common to get hired in as at a tint shop. So everybody's got a different way to get into it, and that's one thing about tinting is like there's no easy road into getting into tint, unfortunately. You just gotta like, I think one of the cheapest things is like practice on your own car, pull it into like get a storage unit that's big enough to tint a car, because it's like a couple $100 or something like that, and then practice there for let's say a month. But even then, you kind of have to figure out power because not every storage unit has power. Some do, though. What's your opinion about the Instacam? It's really unique and really, really flexible. I have quite a few different cameras. The quality on this is not going to be as good because it's just like the sensor size and everything is really small. But this is the most convenient camera that I've pretty much ever come across because you can just and then start recording. And this is one of the best angles to see everything. But if you want just like a head cam, you could do a, what is it called? The Osmo Action. The DJI Osmo Action 4 looks awesome. That is like genuinely a super good looking action cam that doesn't look like an action cam. And then if you want like a little point and shoot one, either use a nice phone camera or use like the what is it? DJI Pocket 3. That one also looks fantastic for what it is. Other than that, you don't need to go crazy. You don't need like a super big crazy camera or anything. Can I be a mod? Maybe. If I recognize you enough, then we'll make you a mod. I usually hand out mods if I like really need one because there's a lot of spam there. I typically don't do much with moderation because usually it's not bad. Yeah, like right now, like there's no spam coming in that I see unless somebody already took care of it. I learned from your videos in the outdoors old days, crazy long ago. It has been a while, hasn't it? I've been doing videos and stuff for quite a long time now. It's weird too. It's weird to. It was like weird after 2 or 3 years that people were starting their own tint businesses and stuff. Your stream bitrate is way too high. We recommend doing 6800. Oh, that's like so low. Can you talk about Pro Classic Tint on your website? Yeah. So there's 5 different films, and I'll pull it up here. So we have, let's see, automotive tint. So there's 5 different films here. And Pro Classic, that's going to be your least expensive dyed film. C2 Carbon, that's a carbon film. And then you have 3 ceramic films. Pro Nano Ceramic and C2 Ceramic are going to be fairly similar. At the time when I was doing tests with Pro Nano, which is this one right here, Pro Nano blocked more heat than the C2, but C2 has improved since then. And then you have Apex, which is basically 2 layers of ceramic combined into one film. So Pro Classic is just an awesome workhorse film. If you want any type of film to just install on a car that is just going to give you a nice result and save you a little bit more money, that's going to be Pro Classic. There's no heat rejection in it, but it is just a good color stable lifetime warranty film. C2 Carbon is going to block out a little bit more heat, especially when you go down to 20, 15, 5, or 2%. The more carbon that you add, so like they have a bunch of different shades here. So the more carbon that you add, the more heat that it blocks out. So to basically simplify this, no heat block, about some heat block, more heat block, like the ceramic ones, and then the absolute most. But these 3 ceramics are all going to be really, really good options. Which films do I offer? Pro Classic, C2 Carbon, and Pro Nano Ceramic. And then I do have Apex. I have it right in this cabinet right here. But I don't really talk about it or advertise it very much because this tops out for my customers at 700, which is usually about what people are going to want to spend here at the most. But I do have people that if they go to like my website, it's listed on my website if you do some digging. So people that want to do some research and figure out what the absolute best ceramic is, if you were to ask me, like, what is the best ceramic? That's what I would say is the best. So some people, even though it's not going to make a substantial difference to go from Pro Nano to Apex, there's people that are just like, I don't care. I just want your absolute best. That's my absolute best. Pro Classic look kind of cheap in my opinion, so I just offer C2 as my entry. I don't think it looks cheap. It looks like a good tint, but it doesn't block out any heat. The thing that I like to keep in mind, though, is whatever films that you're looking to sell, you want to be able to highlight what the benefits of the next model up. So if you start with a carbon, you're already blocking out a good amount of heat. And then you would have a ceramic, and then up from there you would have maybe a super ceramic. It's nice to have a good, better, best, or at least have some type of really good pricing on your entry where it's not that big of a deal if you don't sell your ceramic. But a good, better, best model is just highly recommended in so many different industries, and you want your pricing to kind of reflect and funnel the most people, at least towards your middle, with always having an out of, a sky high option where if somebody just wants to spend more money, they can do that. I've noticed 5% SunTech Standard Pro is darker than GeoShield Pro Classic 5%. That could definitely be the case. 5% is going to vary from film to film, and everybody's is going to look a little bit different. So one thing to note about SunTech is that they're owned by Eastman. They are a chemical, they're one of the biggest chemical companies in the world. So they do all their dyeing of film. So if there's one thing they're really good at, it's dyed window films. But I haven't lined them up side by side, but yeah, it's not surprising that there might be a little difference between them. When do you use razor blades to clean the windows? I use the razor blades pretty much every time. Razor blades are perfectly safe to use, and they're real quick to clean the windows. How much is a wrap for Mustang? I have no idea. C2 ceramic has a way better color, in my opinion. And I'm going to revisit the 35%. Everything else is fine with Pro Nano. The 35% is definitely a little warm looking. But the heat performance, especially in the beginning, it was like a night and day difference from going to like C2 ceramic to Pro Nano. So I got to revisit the 35%. And I meant to order it with my last order, but I just didn't. I forgot to. I was scrambling to get some other film. Do you have any windshield protection application videos? We just have a kind of a silly one that we did with some machine guns. But I don't know what I could recommend for windshield protection film. They're all really expensive, and I don't think they really last, but I haven't tried them more recently. I know it's a really interesting field to people. What's your opinion on Lexan Pure Max? Pure Max was like their only decent line that I looked at. All the other things were hazy. Their Mega Max line, I think I saw some posts on that made it look really good, but it's also like the same price as Pro Nano. So then you have no pricing difference. So like, what's the point? But the Pure Max line, I think, was like their only decent one. Everything else, like their other two lines were hazy. But they're also like far cheaper. So I don't think it really matters per car at that price point. But everybody's got a different opinion on business with that. How many percent of shades and sizes do you need to start with? You don't need a lot. If anything, I would just stick with one film, and that film I would probably do like how I used to tint. I used to do Pro Classic, and this is back 5 or 6 years ago now, when for the most part, like the carbon and ceramic options, they were there, they just weren't as talked about. So really over the past 10 years, carbon and ceramic have really become like the norm, where you have a dyed carbon and ceramic option, and most shops are kind of in line with doing that. So if I were to just pick a film, I would get Pro Classic, and I would get 5, 20, and 35 around here. And I would basically stick with that. If somebody asked about a different shade, I would then order that extra shade and do that job, so I had a little bit more inventory. And then I would work on, like, as I made some money, I would maybe be interested in carrying like a ceramic film and then add carbon into there. But if you have the budget in the beginning, dyed carbon and ceramic make the most amount of sense. How many percent shades? Oh, I just started tinting in my garage. How long do you think it takes to get it down? Everybody's different. Sometimes your average person, really, if you have the right mindset and you really just kind of tackle it, you could get pretty good within a month or two. But you just need like that repetition. And I think a lot of people, they'll try to tint their own car, and then they'll go try and tint something else. Where like your own car, you could tint that 15, 20 times in a row and get really good at doing that, and then be able to tint a lot more cars. But there's people, they'll try like a minivan, and then they'll try a really old car, and then it'll just be a really slow process. Was that a GoPro around your neck earlier? No. No, that was the phone. So I'm just using a iPhone right now, and then I put it on this neck mount. So that's what I was streaming from. And then I can just take it and I can put it on this mount right here, and then just chill. So it's nice because I can do both with it. Do you love tinting? Tinting's fine. I wouldn't say I absolutely love tinting, but I think any type of job that I just would do would get boring in some way or other. So being able to use cameras and stream and do all this tech stuff makes it a lot more fun. So the variety, like we do classes, we just tint cars, and we do a lot of videos and stuff around tinting. So like that variety there makes it a lot more fun. It's kind of like my creative outlet. Otherwise, I don't know what I would do. Was that a GoPro mount you put around your neck earlier? No. I said it's a phone mount. So you can take this. Which side? And then this just goes here. And then I flip the camera to the back side. And then you just go, I just put the case on. But then it'll just do that. And then it can be hands-free for a little while. So it's great for like the door windows and stuff. And then put it back on just like a magnetic mount, and it works really well. Have you ever played VR MetaQuest 3? I got a MetaQuest 3, and I was just really curious because it had been a long time since I used any of that, but now it's unfortunately collecting dust. Probably should have bought like a PS5 instead. Start with GeoShield Pro Classic or Carbon. It's kind of a... Oh, that was a reply to somebody. Yeah, both of them are going to be really good options. If you want to save a little bit more money, Pro Classic's great. They're both really, really good films, though. But the reason I would say Pro Classic, even over C2, it's like you're not going to break the bank just by jumping to C2. But if you don't have anything to compare it to for your customers, a lot of times in the beginning, you're just trying to do tint jobs, and your customers don't know the difference between dyed carbon and ceramic. They know they want tint. So then just offer them a good tint, and that's what Pro Classic is. It's just a good tint. It makes it a little bit easier that way. How does warranty work? So that is something through the company. So there will be warranty cards with your film, and you can, with each job, there are warranty roll, or there's roll numbers associated with it. So you see those numbers right there. It says roll at the very bottom. So you would fill out a warranty card and register it on the website, and then they'll basically it helps keep track if there's any type of a film issue. We know you've ordered film, but we don't necessarily know if you bought GeoShield and then down the road decided to use another film, and then you want to try and use GeoShield to warranty another film's problem. So then you register the date, the roll type, the percentage, and that way, if you have a film problem down the line, you can then get some type of reimbursement for those issues. I want to show in the day in the life. I want to show day in the life of a dealer tinted, as well as instructional videos. How would I promote? How do I promote starting out? Just create a YouTube channel. Yeah, literally just make a channel and start posting videos. YouTube does the work. YouTube is the distribution platform. It's the hosting and the distribution platform. The tough part about YouTube is trying to get in front of people because there's so many people posting. So it just comes with a lot of practice, time, repetition. I mean, if you look at my channel, I have far more subscribers than I have views on my most recent videos. It's just, it's a tough game. So trying to post relevant things that people want to see in a way that people want to see it is always tough. But yeah, just get started. Is Tint Depot ceramic extreme hard to shrink? I am not sure. I don't think it would be, but I haven't used it. Lamborghini or Ferrari? Lamborghini or Ferrari for a video? There was a search volume thing on that. I'm not sure. I would double check that before I gave an answer. But if you can look up on Google general search volume for certain terms, and I think Lamborghini gets far more searches than Ferrari does. So probably a Lambo. How are high-tech films? I haven't used them. I know a lot about high-tech though. So like I would probably trust that company. So high-tech is owned by a distributor down in Texas. But I live in an African country. The average window here costs around $3. Ooh, try to make a living with it. Sounds like it's not going to make sense to be a tinter there then, unfortunately. Like, window tint is kind of a luxury thing, and so it's not going to make sense everywhere, unfortunately. It's a good service and a good skill, but people need to have some money to be able to splurge on that kind of stuff. It's like a designer bag or something like that. Some people do it out of necessity, and some people do it because they, most people do it because they want it. I attended your class back in March. What's your average prices for Apex line? Do you have many people buy it? I don't have very many people buy it because I don't really advertise it that much. But also, like, Pro Nano maxes out at, like, on average about 700 for, like, all the sides and the rear and the front windshield. But for Apex, I'll usually add another $200. So all around with the windshield, it'll be like 900. I just kind of look at the price and like if I were to do Apex, I'm just gonna tack on more than what I would do for Pro Nano. But it's definitely more of a toss up on pricing for that. I just like it's a certain type of person that'll ask for Apex. They'll go, I want your best ceramic film, or like, what is your best? I want that. And then that's when I would start talking about Apex. Because otherwise, it's just like my standard dyed carbon ceramic. I would love to sell Apex all day, but being realistic here in Michigan, not everybody is concerned about heat rejection at all times in the year. So Have you worked with flex film? I installed it for a little while. I just don't like the company. Do you send tools when I ordered on TikTok? Yeah, we. If you order tools on TikTok, if you order through TikTok Shop, yes, like we ship. I don't understand the question as much. Yes. If you place an order, yes, we send it. I'm always trying to upsell 3M ceramic. Install so nice. Oh, nice. I tried doing crystalline like one time. There was a shop, like a high-end detail shop. I remember trying to install it. Are you the owner of the shop? Yeah, this is my shop. Realistically, can you net 6 figures a year with this career? Yeah, for sure. It's a lot of work, and it depends on how you do it. Which is like, if you're gonna charge $100 a car, you're not gonna be able to do it. That's why you always have to. You have to think about that good, better, best model. You have to be actively upselling, and you have to do quite a few cars. So just break down how many cars do you think you could do inside of a day. Now expand that out to 5, 6 days a week, and then expand that out to a month, and then see where your numbers fall inside of a year. And you got to understand, like, you're probably going to take a little vacation time. You're probably not going to stay that busy every day. So if you take like 2 cars a day, 5 days a week, what do you have to charge on average to break 6 figures inside of a year? So, and then you can get a realistic idea of where you should be or where you would want to be on pricing to do something like that. But it is a lot of work. Is 35% tint good for both privacy and to skip high sun rays? Is 35 is like, I would do 20. 20 is gonna be pretty good. 35 is okay for some added shade. Like, I have a lot of people do it. If you're doing it in ceramic, it's gonna be a lot more beneficial because you're not gonna feel as much heat. Like, you're not gonna feel heat really at all anymore with doing 35. So, but if you do like a 20% carbon, it's gonna be a little bit more comfortable and more in line with probably what you want to be. How's your camera moving by yourself? I have it's on a little Belkin tracker. So it's on that little guy right there. And you just... They're trying to sell them to me like all day on TikTok Shop. Not these specifically. But if you have an iPhone, what's nice is it ties in and you can just stream off of TikTok and do this. What would be a good length to start with, 24 or 36? If you're doing just front doors, 24. If you're doing cars, like we have here, I can cover both the passenger and the driver's side with a 36-inch roll. So this is a 36-inch roll, and it'll cover this window, and over on the other side, it's tall enough to cover the other window. So I can split this in half and then only use 18 inches of film rather than using 20 or 24. So, but I need at least a 36-inch roll to cover the back window and the front windshield. So it depends on what you're doing. Practice doors, 24. Practice back windows and front windshields, 36s. I would try and get both, but you could make, if you just had to pick one, 36. What's the benefit of using a plotter and hand cuts? A plotter or hand cut, well, and they're a good combination tool. So a plotter is going to get you most of the way there quicker, but it takes out all the hand cutting issues. So what you can do is, well, it doesn't take out all the hand cutting issues, but it's a way to at least, like, if you don't know how to tint, it's a way to get started a little bit faster, but then you usually become a little bit more dependent. So it's better to learn hand cutting just because you always need to do it. But if, let's say, I had a guy come in with a couple doors on a truck, you could just get a plotter and plot them out pretty easily. and get the job done way faster. And if you mess up a window, you just print out another one. So there's always benefits to using a plotter, but don't get super lazy on them. If my state only allows 35%, can I legally get away with 30? No, because they're probably going to take a tint meter like this, and then they'll put it on your windows and go, that is darker. But if you tint them 30, then they're going to be even darker than 30. So like, for example, if I take 50% and I put it on the front doors, it's not going to meter 50. It's going to meter like 47 or something like that. It's going to take into the account like the glass along with the film together. The films is a percentage and so is the glass. Legally, no. Illegally, yes. Oh my God, this chat is working so nice. What software are you using for the platter? I recommend using Core. Core is just a far better software. So this software right here, it's $150 a month for window tint, and it's pretty damn accurate. So let me close this. So for example, I would take my front doors, I would click that, and then it would put it over here. Here's my cut window, go to cut board. And then this is a 24-inch roll. So you can see I can only fit one 24-inch roll here. If I change this, what vehicle? Oh, this might not fit. 36. If it was an Altima, it would fit on there. An Explorer is going to be a little bit tall, but you can see, so we would take this, if I was doing front doors, and we change this back to a 24, there's both my doors on a 24-inch roll. I'm at 100, I'm using Core, I'm at 100 a month for tint. You're either a long-time user or you're using like Suntech or Lumar. I'm not, so they're charging me full boat. And they're getting a lot of advertising now, it's kind of sad. But they're the best that I've used. Does that software have semi-truck windows? It's got a handful. I don't hardly ever do semi-trucks. But if you ask me like a specific one, I could look it up for you. Oops. I use film designs and 3M's program. They both miss cutouts every now and then. I think they all do. I really didn't like film and vinyl designs. 3M, I think, just went through a big update that I have to look at again. Have you tried Union? No. No, they're through the tint school, though. Probably pretty good stuff. I've talked to them before. Lumar, what do you think about it? Decent film, kind of overpriced at this point, but the thing is, there comes a point when you are paying a lot more for branding, and that's what you're doing with Lumar. Lumar, Axpel, 3M, those are all names that if you've heard of a tint brand, those might be one of the tint brands that you've heard of. So they are charging a steep premium. It doesn't mean their films are better, it just means they're more known. So if you carry one of those films, leverage the fuck out of that name, and figure out how to do that. And if your customers just don't care, then like, what is the point of carrying them? So if you want to be considered the best shop, then why wouldn't you use the best branded film? Like all those things can kind of tie together. Do you ever think GeoShield will become like that? I don't know. That's a tough thing. I honestly don't know. GeoShield's got a really good brand, but I'd say they have pretty decent branding too. I think some of it is a little bit mismatched, and they know that it is, and they've been doing a lot more recently to try and adjust for that. I still think they miss the mark sometimes, where it's just like, I don't know. it just doesn't quite add up. But I think one of the hardest things in business is to dethrone companies that are doing really well. And when you have 3M, Axpel, they've just got heaps more money to throw behind their brands and everything. And some of them do particular things that are a lot less, by design, a lot less dealer friendly. So if you become an Axpel dealer, you have to wear the uniform, you have to make your shop look like an Axpel. If you carry one of their products, or if you install, if they have that product, like a ceramic coating, then they require you to install that product, not a competitor's, because they want you to be all in on their brand. And for some businesses that just, like, hey, I like their film, but I don't like their ceramic coating. So then they want to go grab somebody else's coating. So there's certain restrictive things that some of these companies do that just aren't as dealer friendly. And then also they start, because they have territories and stuff, they start squeezing those dealers as well. So then what cost $100 this year now costs 125, and then 150, and then 200, and you have no choice but to keep reordering it, and they squeeze the fuck out of their dealers. So there is a lot of pros, and there's also a lot of cons that come with it. I don't know if Geo's ever gonna, like, I don't know necessarily what they would even have to do to go from that A tier, or from like, I'd say they're like an A tier brand, but then you have like your S tier brands, and I don't know what they would have to do to like cross over there. It's kind of like, what if there was another video streaming platform besides YouTube? It's like, how do you get that recognition? How do you get people over there? Like, there's so many things that come into it, and I don't know what GeoShield could do right off the rip that would put them there to like that next level. But then again, I don't know if they necessarily want to be one of those companies either. So it's tough. I asked about plotters because I've been hand cutting for more than a year. I don't want to be more efficient. A plotter's a pretty good way to do that. For a machine, I mean, the Workhorse 1 is going to be, the Workhorse 1 is probably going to be my best budget machine recommendation. GraphTech is going to be like my high-end recommendation. If you want something kind of in between, go with a Jag. Jaguar, the GCs, I think they're called. Let me see. It's kind of like the best of both. You get features that are in a GraphTech, but you don't have to pay like the GraphTech price. The GCC Jaguar, one of these machines right here. So that's a 62-inch, but like a 40-inch one, which is what you would need, would be about $4,000. And then GraphTech. This is, I have this machine right here. You really, for window tint, I would recommend a 40-inch machine. There's no reason to get a 54. You either have 72-inch rolls or 60-inch rolls at the biggest. And so this is also for paint protection film as well. So that's why we have that. But then Workhorse. So if we click here, the Workhorse 1 is $15.99, and the Workhorse 2 is more. Why? Oh, they're both sold out. That's kind of a bummer. The Workhorse 1 isn't missing any features that thing has right there. It just doesn't look as nice as that machine over there. So if anything, and you want to save more money, I don't know when they're going to be back in stock though, but you could ask them. I can't get any customers. I'm only on Marketplace though. I wonder what your problem is. Marketplace is a flea market of hagglers and people looking for like a deal or something like that. So if, let's see who even pops up. Let me just search. Window tint. Oh, here. I'll go on maps. I'm gonna do this on Google. Here. Let's do the most basic ass search. Tint near me. What pops up? Oh shit, I pop up. Why is that? Oh my god. I'm actually doing something fairly cool. I'm also like right here, so it might be using my location too. I'm not quite sure. But we got Tinted AF. We have Midnight, which has significantly more reviews than I have. And probably a much more attractive looking shop because of all of this too. They also do PPF way more regularly than I do. But this is the kind of stuff that you need to take into consideration. Like these are, if somebody goes on Google and they search, and then if I click on maps, like what pops up? So if I go on Marketplace, what am I looking for? I'm looking for cheap and convenient, and especially cheap, because people are just looking for used stuff and a deal on Marketplace. So you're gonna want a couple things. You're gonna want to get listed on Google. So Google My Business, so you pop up in regular searches. You're gonna want to put a website together, and then you're just gonna want to start getting your reviews up. That's how you're gonna start getting known, and you're gonna be able to break away from Marketplace. The other thing you can also do is when you get a site put together, you can start doing some paid advertising. Both on Google and Facebook are probably the best places to do that. But I would start with that kind of stuff. And then you'll start getting regular customers, not necessarily like super budget customers. But yeah, just like you got to start looking at this like a consumer. So like when you go look for a service or you go look for a place to do or go look for a place to go, if you don't have a friend that experienced that service, you have nobody that can recommend anything to you. So then you start typing away and searching. Like you might search on TikTok, Instagram. You might come across something in your feed. Like everybody finds businesses in a number of different ways. But when you're really not sure of where to go, you generally go into search and start typing away, or look for an Instagram profile or something like that. So the more you stand out in those places, the more general traffic business that you start getting. You have to, because at this point, there's lots of other tint shops that are doing all those things. So there's like, no matter how you cut it, this is work. It's always work to get into, and it's always work to do. Always say to leave a review and then offer maybe a discount or something. You could do that. My dad's shop did that for a long time. They would give like a $20 discount for like a Facebook like at the time. But they would do some type of a discount if somebody left a review, and that got reviews up very, very quickly. Other than that, you have to kind of like push it in your customer's face a little bit. Sending out like an automated email. That's how we get some of our reviews. Is we do Tint Wiz, and then so after we check out, then let's see. Let me go to reviews here. So some of these, we get automated review forms that get sent to people asking to like leave a review. So that's where some of these have come from. And then sometimes people just actually go out of their way. I don't have as many reviews though, because I genuinely just like forget to bring it up. I never feel like I'm pushing, but actually saying like, hey, leave a Google review, you just get more of them. It's definitely something you want to focus on. Is there a product you can recommend for residential tinting? GeoShield has a full line of residential stuff. So let me run through that really quick. Architectural, Super Alloy, Geo, Pro Nano 70 you can even use, Lunar 20, Astro, Silver Reflective. So they have some descriptions. So this is a dual reflective film. Or no, I don't think. No, Super Alloy is like a shiny film. Geo, I think, is a dual reflective film. This one is like with architectural films, they all have some type of little shininess to them to help reflect heat away from the house. That makes it safe for the windows that you're installing them on. So with Super Alloy, it's a much more mirrored look. And then with Geo, the Geo line, they just are more of a natural tint look. And then you have something as dark as Lunar 20, which only has a slight reflectiveness, but it's much darker overall. With houses, it's generally unsafe to do like a 5% on any of that. Crap. Is there a way to repair wrinkles after you install? I wish you could just take a iron and steam them out and just no, they're creases. They're done. What was Beans and Sight? What? The architectural one? Is Avery Dennison also good for architectural tint? Avery was just architectural tint and vinyl, I think. Hang on, I'm trying to remember this. They purchased Haneditech, which was like a 30-year window film manufacturer out of Israel. So that's when they started selling automotive window tint. I think that's when they started selling architectural. I want to say they had their shit together with architectural. They just didn't have their shit together with automotive. So if you were to do anything through Avery, do their architectural. What was the brand and site that you showed? Oh, okay. Sorry. So the site, 313tint.com. Oh, we're going to zoom all the way into the screen. And then the brand is GeoShield. So it's just under the architectural tab. So automotive tint, architectural tint, and then that's where you can find all these. Again, those. Oh man, we're gonna go. Just keep zooming. What's your opinion on? Oh wow, the voice really doesn't say it very well. What is your opinion on Tint X? They're everybody's coming from a different place when they're getting into window tint, and I get it. You want to try and save as much money and get as much bang for your buck as humanly possible, so that's why a lot of people like that brand. I never suggest starting with cheap carbons or cheap ceramic films because they just don't shrink as easy, and they're generally hazy. So if you're going to use one film from that company, use Pure Max. Everything else just doesn't make sense. Does PPF shrink or stretch? PPF is all about stretching. There's a couple of videos on the channel about PPF more recently. We used optical PPF. They came out and did in-person training, so I would definitely check that out. It was pretty good. You learn a really, really smart installer. He was great. They really don't shrink easy. I don't make, if it was the, man, that company has reached out to me a whole bunch of times and they want to work with me in some way. I just I don't know how to recommend it. It's fine for just cutting and installing door windows and just practicing, except shrinking. It sucks for shrinking. So I've had people come to the classes and they've tried to, or they've ordered that film because people have said just go get Lexan, so they get their cheapest one. And the next thing you know, they're having all types of problems learning how to shrink. And then they try something like Geo, which it's not the fact that it's Geo, it's just the fact that it's a better quality. Well, part of the fact is that it's Geo. But it's genuinely just a solid all-around film. Any of the films that you get are solid films, and they all shrink really, really well. So it's not the fact that it is a professional grade film that makes it easy, but a better film, a higher quality film is at this point generally is going to shrink a little bit easier. What one? Any of them. Yeah, for 10X, Pure Max was the only decent one. Bro's Neuralink is leaking. Yeah, no kidding. What would be the most bang for the buck ceramic? I like C2 ceramic, I think, or Pro Nano. So the thing is, when you're looking for bang for the buck ceramic, everything comes with a cost. you either get a really hazy ceramic or you get a really good ceramic. There's like nothing that makes sense in between anywhere. Not really. Not that I can recommend. There's just too many, like, it might fail, it might do this, it might do, it's just like, it's not worth it. The thing is, like, so take a 36 by 100 foot roll. So let's say it's $400, and then divide it by 8. And then there's your vehicle cost. Minus a windshield. So, and with that, I'm gonna take off. I don't know. We'll probably do another one tomorrow or something. But a lot of good questions today. The new hybrid M5. I haven't had one or seen one in person. But I'm going to take off. Thank you so much for hanging out. I appreciate y'all. We'll be back again.